Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, 29 points from Luka Dončić. Lakers 108-102 over the Clippers. Andy, they're the second best team in the Western Conference. Number two. Talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, it's always free, never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube, Andy, is where over 33,000 subscribers are marveling at the fact the Lakers have moved to percentage points ahead of the Denver Nuggets for the number 2 seed in the Western Conference, following Sunday night's 108-102 win over the Clippers. The Lakers sweep the home thing, whatever it is, head-to-head, back-to-back games against the Clippers. Not an easy thing to do, to beat a good team twice in a row. The Lakers did it. Luka Dončić gives them 29 points on a night where the Lakers were playing without Austin Reaves and without Rui Hachimura. A big night for Dalton
and without
Knecht.
Jordan Goodwin.
And without Jordan Goodwin, yes. And a big night for Dalton Knecht, which we'll get into over the course of this game, of this show. But Andy, if I had said, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, that the Lakers would be starting off March as essentially the 2 seed in the Western Conference, you would have congratulated me on a successful 2K season that I was playing in parallel with the one the Lakers were actually having, because that did not seem like something that was going to actually happen.
Well, I imagine I also would have congratulated you for somehow getting the Dallas Mavericks in 2K to trade you Luka, because all of this just seemed incredibly unlikely. I mean, to be fair to the Lakers, they had been playing pretty well before the Luka deal even happened. They had been playing well despite not having Anthony Davis for that stretch when he was hurt before they eventually traded him for Luka Dončić. Like, things had been looking up for the Lakers. You know, we've framed this often in a 6-week period, because that's often when JJ has talked about when LeBron James, for example, started really picking up his defense, which led to a positive team-wide trickle-down effect that I think has had as much to do with the defensive uptick as DFS's arrival, Jared Vanderbilt's return, Gabe Vincent rounding back into form, Jordan Goodwin, down the line. But the thing about adding Luka to this team is he raises the floor and the ceiling. And the floor is what you need when things aren't clicking and you just need to try to find ways to win against all odds or against whatever circumstances. But when things are going well, that ceiling factor that we're now seeing is coming into play, because beating the Clippers by six without 2 starters and a key rotation defensive guard, like, they're just now looking like a team that believes in themselves, that they're outside of the turnovers that we saw tonight. Well, we will get into that. That was sloppiness that even then marks a certain improvement, but just they're in such great sync and they have such great confidence right now. You really start believing a lot is possible with this group.
Well, I mean, first of all, I completely agree with you. But you talk about the improvement as they integrate Luka and learn how to do this. And look, Luka is no question. They said Luka is going to be the center of this offense. We're going to run things through Luka, and they, for the most part, we still have LeBron James here, so it's like sometimes like LeBron's going to be doing stuff, but for the most part, Luka's got the ball in his hands. You see LeBron cutting and moving and, giving Luka an outlet. A lot of 2-man game in the fourth quarter sometimes, between those guys. And it's, but this is them learning to play with Luka, learning how to do this. And what I thought was kind of cool about Sunday's game was that it was a 9 assist game from Luka, which like you start to expect, 29 points, 9 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 12 from 3. Like the step back is working and all that's like he's getting the line. Like it looked very much.
He had
like
at least, off the top of my head, he had at least 2 and 1 sequences in this game.
Yeah, it just looked similar to the second half. Like I was excited that on the second half Friday, because he had been generally starting fast, maybe running out of gas a little bit. Second half on Friday was better than the first. He had 10 points in the fourth quarter in the victory Friday against the Clippers, and carried that throughout the game. Still had big moments in the first and second half of this game. But I loved 9 assists from Luka and 9 assists from LeBron. You start to see the scope of the playmaking and the gravity and the problems that, and this is without AR, it makes things even more complicated. The amount of attention that these guys draw is staggering. And Luka is just so good at seeing over a double team, around a triple team and all that, and finding the open man. Like the Lakers were getting tons of, as Dorian Finney-Smith calls them, butt naked. What's the second part? It's butt
naked, wide open looks.
Right. Butt naked, wide open shots. And particularly early, they were making them, and that helped them get out to a nice start. As this offense sort of orients towards Luka, Andy, you're still seeing, it's not like the effect of LeBron disappears. And so, if they can do all this and defend, and again, 102 points, it's starting to become a trend. Teams don't score much more than 100 against the Lakers. There are many reasons to be excited about what is coming up for the rest of the year.
Well, you mentioned that they were able to do this, the type of playmaking and looks that they could generate without having Austin there, because Austin is, he's the third ball handler in this group, but he's still a part of creating offense and part of the advantage that you have when at most times you have at least 2 of the 3 on the court. But they were also doing this without having Rui as a finishing option, whether at the rim or behind the arc. Like Rui is a big part of making the assists happen, because he's somebody that can score in a variety of different ways and somebody that can be set up in all these different places across the court. They still managed to make it happen. And, Luka got the team off to a 13-4 start. There early on, there was a stretch where he had a steal that turned into, I want to say, a Luka step back, but it definitely turned into a basket. He had a hit ahead to LeBron for an easy dunk, and then another step back 3 of his own. And that led to a Clippers timeout and a 13-4 lead, like pretty early on from the jump. And you just see also too, the confidence growing in Luka, that, not that Luka lacks for confidence as a player, but the confidence of, to quote John Wick, I'm back.
Right. Confidence.
Yeah.
Comfort.
I'm thinking I'm back.
Right. Yeah. You can just see it. Like it is when you don't watch a player every day, you don't see, you don't get to see everything that they do. You kind of get the highlights, you get the highlight package, maybe you play fantasy basketball, whatever it is, and when you do get to see it though, we're fortunate. We had seen a lot of Luka, but it's still a different experience when you watch him, whatever it is, 8 games in a row, 9 games. I didn't see every single game. That evolution, and there is truly a belief you can tell from these guys that when they walk out on the floor, because not having LeBron used to give you a certain degree of confidence. Having LeBron and Luka, especially, and they're not putting up gaudy offensive numbers necessarily, but having those guys and knowing what the potential is of an offense that not only features Luka but has LeBron still there, you can just see the additional, I hate the term, but the additional swagger that the team walks out on the floor with, and their starting quarters, and there's a good third quarter push to kind of I'll say this, and we'll talk about maybe some this week. We're getting into very first world criticisms of a team. Oh, there they go again. Letting a 17-point lead get down to like 10 at the half, as if 10's not a good halftime lead. Like, these are very first world problems that the Lakers are having, and they've come through, Andy, this stretch of challenging games when the only, you're trying to do this with a new roster and they keep winning. The only teams they've lost to are Philly, Utah, and Charlotte.
And we can talk about this a little more after the break. I also want to make sure that we get into Dalton Knecht, who had a huge night, and the bench in general, another really strong showing. But 2 of those 3 losses were going into the All-Star break and coming out of the All-Star break, which is often when teams are lacking focus. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm just saying it's hardly unheard of to have those type of losses. And it was still at a period where Luka was getting himself back physically, mentally, spiritually after the trade. So talk about it coming up next. There's a lot to get excited about with this team. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a larger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. There's features like live betting that keeps every single moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late game rally, picking a player to hit a clutch 3. You never feel like you miss a chance. It's a really easy app to use. When you get paid, when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So Dalton Knecht obviously was a huge part of this. Like LeBron, I think, played a very nice game. That's not what I'm trying to imply here, but he didn't put up another 29 or 30 points to go with Luka's 29.
This was not one of LeBron's better games.
He was fine. He moved the ball okay. He hit a couple of shots when
he had 8 turnovers.
Yeah, I didn't say it was perfect. I said he was okay. Did some good things, not efficient from the floor and whatever. It was not a dominant LeBron game to go with it. We 100% agree. So you're looking for where he gave you 17 points. So, okay. Normally, if you get, Luka and LeBron are playing without AR, you figure you got to get somewhere between 55 and 60 points. LeBron didn't give that to you. Where are you going to get those other points? And it was Dalton Knecht. It was 7 of 10 from the floor, 5 of 8 from 3-point range, 19 points from Dalton. It was the first game, Andy, where I think where you really could see the potential of what Dalton could look like in this offense if he's playing well and shooting well and all that kind of stuff.
We've talked about before in the past, Dalton generally plays better at home, which is not surprising. Between him being a role player and a rookie, you would expect him to have better splits at home versus on the road. But this was a game where they really needed somebody to pick up that slack. I think it also helped, too, that Dalton got hot early. He had 14 of his points in the first half. I think that's really helpful for him. He also had 2 steals, hit the glass all right. He had a few possessions defensively against Harden where he matched up really well. You mentioned earlier, second straight game where they really prevented Harden from doing much of anything.
It was 5 of 22, I think he was on Friday. And in this one finished 4 for 14. So a horrible weekend for James Harden. You put a lot of that on the Lakers defense.
You and I were not at either of these games, much less in the Clippers locker room after, but I am willing to go out on a limb and predict James Harden despises Jared Vanderbilt, because the possessions where Vando has been guarding him have been an absolute pain in the ass for James Harden. And Vando also off the bench, really strong game in 22 minutes, 8 points, 4-7 from the field, 9 rebounds, 5 on the offensive glass. There was a possession where the Lakers ended up, it was a LeBron corner 3 on a 4th chance opportunity that was created by 2 offensive rebounds by Vando, 1 by Trey Jemison. And there was another play, or there's another sequence where Vando had 2 offensive rebounds, the second of which he converted into a dunk off a LeBron miss. He had 2 blocks. So you combined the 8 points that he had off the bench with 19 from Dalton, 6 from Shake Milton. Shake getting some rare play with all the guys missing, hit 2 threes, which is, that's what you're looking for from Shake, is just provide some points, and the stuff that he's not great at, don't cause any harm. Chips in a few buckets, good enough. Like, it's the bench has been needed these last couple games with guys missing, and the bench has stepped up.
What I think is great about it too, and we talked a little bit about this on Friday, and it's certainly no less applicable after Sunday's game. And this is what's great about Knecht, is like part of the reason that Knecht was seemed expendable in the in the Williams deal that never that got rescinded, was because of this idea it's going to be hard to play defensively. Like in the playoffs, you're not going to be able to put him on the floor because he's just not a good enough defender to hold up. And so if you can't play him in the playoffs, and you really do need a center, and they still need a center, that hasn't changed, then
more centers at the very least.
Right. And that makes Knecht somebody you can put it in. We talked after Friday, after the game, of like how the way the Lakers are playing, especially defensively now, it kind of doesn't matter to some degree who is in the game. They are all operating that scheme effectively. So, they've had a couple games. Reaves didn't play much on Friday. Rui didn't play at all. Like, okay, like they've had games without AD. Okay, like doesn't really seem to matter who you have to plug in, whether it's Shake Milton or Jordan Goodwin or Jared Vanderbilt or whoever's in or out of the lineup. They are operating as a group. And so if that's the case, and that includes Knecht, that potentially makes him a far more viable player in the playoffs. And you want to design an offensive player that should thrive in a butt naked, wide open offense led by Luka and LeBron. You might draw up Dalton Knecht, who can not only shoot from any position, off the catch, off the dribble, but also is totally fine putting the ball on the floor, cuts to the basket, good offensive player. He's your template.
I'm going to try before Tuesday's show to look up some of the numbers. I'm curious to see Dalton's percentages when A, on the court with Luka, B, being fed by Luka. Like, what they track all this stuff where you can see like when guys are passing to whoever, their percentages on those passes, whatever. It has seemed like Dalton has become a more productive offensive player since Luka's arrival, and particularly over the last few games. When everybody's at full strength, fingers crossed that's going to be the case in the playoffs. I'm still not convinced Dalton is going to play a lot, because
he may not.
Right. There are 7 or 8 guys on this team who are firmly in the rotation ahead of him when all hands are on deck, similar to what we had talked about when the Lakers were going to trade Dalton for Mark Williams. We said at the time, because Mark Williams had never been in the playoffs, he has some defensive issues, we weren't even convinced Williams would necessarily play a ton in the playoffs. The difference was just we knew that Williams would play for sure, even if not a ton, versus Dalton we weren't sure was going to play at all. But for the time being, if Dalton is capable of stepping up and does, you worry about the playoffs later. You worry about all that stuff in April and beyond. For now, what you need is if Reaves misses a few games, if Rui's out for a few weeks, Jordan Goodwin, JJ said afterwards, it's a grade 1 sprain, which, as he put it, is as good of news as you can get for bad news. but Jordan
Right.
Goodwin may be out for a little bit, which means, like I said before, Shake might get some minutes, but Dalton will likely get more minutes. They're going to need him to step up. So far, he has.
Do want to remind people that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Think we're just having an earthquake. Apologies if we aren't. My house is shaking. Anyway, I'm just interested in how they sustain this stuff with guys going in and out of the lineup. Obviously, this, some people on the chat are agreeing with me that there was an earthquake. I am really interested in this team concept because it was one of these benchmarks, Andy, that I've been looking at. Lion King says it's not an earthquake; it's Lakers fans jumping up and down. Probably true.
Or the folks who made a Nora all excited, cleaned up at the Oscars.
I know. There are these benchmarks that you place for being like, if you're really going to be a good team, like the Lakers had beaten good teams earlier, they had good games, or hadn't sustained anything. One of them is, do you play well with players missing? Do you still look like you're all doing the same stuff anyway, and everybody understands the system? The answer now is absolutely. Like if Luka and LeBron didn't play in games, the Lakers probably lose, but I do think they would still adhere to the basic system. Like they would all be pulling in the same direction and executing the same game plan that they're being asked. I think that is something that is impressive. And then the other thing is, before I can believe that you're a team that can go on a long run in the spring, I need to see you win 15 of 18. 18 of 22, that happens in the NBA. You get at least one of those runs if you're one of those teams. And the Lakers are on that run now. They're showing that they are on that run, and they're doing it, Andy. I think maybe something we can talk about after the break. They're doing that under circumstances that you would not think you'd be able to rip off this kind of success, which to me makes it that much more impressive.
Get into that coming up next.
All right.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's really simple. Any player puts up 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an offer up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So after a 50-point performance, celebrate with some wings, some pizzas, some burgers from your favorite spot delivered straight to your door. You can get a little lunch on the go with the Dash Pass. You get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees, reduced service fees. Plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. Again, 50 or more, 50% off the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders from participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
Early returns on the earthquake, Andy. I am seeing something. A preliminary 3.6 detected 9 kilometers from Beverly Hills. Would have felt pretty shallow. Either way, a lot of people on earthquake Twitter. If you are not familiar with earthquake Twitter, clearly you don't live in Los Angeles. This is something that Twitter springs into action in LA following an earthquake. Early returns on it, people are unimpressed. I see one guy commenting, weak ass earthquake. So
I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah, they want something a little more impressive. People don't get out of bed for this type of thing. Do want to remind people as well, newsletter, lockedondaily.com. Go to lockedondaily.com, click on Locked On Lakers, and you get all this stuff delivered to you every day. I am, like I said, the Lakers showing the signposts of being a good team, doing good team things under difficult circumstances against a tough schedule. Like it is well past maybe they have kind of a punt. Like they're clearly one of the best teams in the Western Conference. They just are.
This is one of the things that jumped out at me in terms of signs that what we're seeing is real, in part because it would not have happened earlier in the season. The Lakers turned the ball over 17 times in this game, 9 in the first quarter alone. They gave up 20 points in the process. They still won. Early in the season, the Lakers were not capable of winning a game, certainly not with any even semi-regularity when they turned the ball over that much, because they were so effing horrible defending in transition. Every time there was at minimum a live ball turnover, they were at risk of getting scored on. And I mean, it was the reason why I remember earlier in the season, for all of D'Angelo Russell's flaws as a player, he was consistently their best plus minus guy, their best net rating guy. And my theory on it was D'Lo was hands down the best on the team at moving the ball with any regularity without turning it over. So he was the guy that, even though he wasn't the best player on this team, he was the best at preventing the Lakers from being put in their absolute worst position. Like, they could not have turned the ball over 17 times earlier in the season and still control the game the way that they did. Like, they were not capable of it beyond improvements in scheme and things like that. Like, I don't think, frankly, they had even the desire and like the will, like to put themselves through the paces of defending in transition like that, much less what they were capable of. Like, there's a lot that shifted on this team, whether schematically, whether the players on the roster, but also the mentality has changed a lot.
I think the mentality is a huge thing of it. I think it really does start with LeBron, and it starts with the change in LeBron's defense following that debacle in Miami. And it's really that really was the sort of the beginning of sort of phase 2 of the season, we'll call it, where you have a far more invested LeBron right away, changes the way that the team operates. When it's as cliche as it sounds, when the 40-year-old guy in year 22 is playing as hard as anybody on the floor, everybody's got to play that hard. Like, if you cannot watch LeBron and loaf defensively, if he's going to put in the effort, you're going to put in the effort. You do that, and as much as you and I praise D'Lo, the swap of D'Lo for DFS, if you're trying to toughen up your defense, add more versatility to it, get a little bit more of the proverbial dog in you, DFS is a better fit for that, and is going to provide that more than D'Angelo Russell. There is no question. And I say that even as somebody who stuck up for D'Lo throughout both of his tenures in Los Angeles. Then you get Jared Vanderbilt back, and he makes a huge difference. Like you say, just ask James Harden. And you start to add in your two ways guys like Trey Jemison, who is not wildly skilled, but is a tough man. I think we can all agree nobody is tussling with Trey Jemison. And then you add in the backcourt kind of a backcourt.
I'm not sure, side note with Trey Jemison, I'm not sure I've ever seen a player on a two-way deal talk as much as Jemison. Like, Jemison, for like a guy that can't, unless, I don't know, maybe he comes from money. I don't know if, like, Trey Jemison III does sound like, if you don't know any backstory at all, it could be a really good prep school name.
Like somebody went to prep school.
Yeah. Right. So maybe the Jemisons, it comes from a long line of money, but most guys who have been bouncing around, the outer edges of the NBA and in the G League don't have disposable cash for technical fouls, flagrant fouls, anything like that. Jemison jaws like a dude that does. Like, he does not care if the league takes his money.
It's, and we'll see there. But mentioned Goodwin as a guy, like, he just plays. I mean, again, you would expect Jemison, Goodwin, guys like that to play really freaking hard. They are trying to find their a stable place in the NBA. It beats a two-way. There's no question. But again, this just changes the sort of the tenor of your team. And then you combine that with, oh, by the way, we've got Luka Dončić now. That adds a little spring to your step, I think, because look, we all understand that part of what gets guys moving and playing well defensively, is just the mechanics of good shooting or good offense, getting good shots, getting good touches and things like that, keeps everybody engaged, keeps you, more enthusiastic. It also makes your offense run better, which sets your defense. But you just, when you have that confidence and the ball is going to be moving a little bit, you're going to get good touches, you play harder defensively. That is true all the time. If you can't score, don't feel like you're getting any leadership on that side, it's hard to do it game in and game out every day. If that's the end of it. And they believe in both sides of the ball really strongly. It's fun to watch.
It also becomes easier to play defense, and when your offense is actually just coming easier, like you quite literally have more energy for the defense when the offense becomes simpler. And even if they're not always making their shots, the offense itself often comes around easier now. Like, there are times we saw there were times against the Clippers, particularly in the first half on Friday, when they didn't have Rui to start the game and Reaves went out 9 minutes in and they had to adjust on the fly. The first, 2.5 quarters of that game, the offense was honestly kind of ugly at times. It was jumbled and sloppy in ways that you would expect. And they kind of just had to figure it out on the fly. But that's the advantage of having guys like LeBron and Luka, is it becomes easier to improvise and figure it out in real time when those are the guys running the store, so to speak. Like, it just becomes that much easier. And then in a game like tonight, where they went into it knowing they weren't going to have Rui, knowing they weren't going to have Reaves, and I'm sure some more just scheming, and everybody was on the same page about how we were going to adjust to it. It just runs smoother, especially when Luka comes out of the gate so hot.
I am excited. I am thankful for Nico Harrison. I am thankful for what Nico has done, not just for Lakers fans, but for LeBron. I am excited about what's coming. You rarely get a situation, Andy, too, where you don't know what sort of the ceiling looks like. We still have so much to learn. We've seen one game in this setup against Denver. We'll get another one on this road trip and see what that looks like. We haven't seen Oklahoma City, but that's going to come up. This ending of the season for the Lakers against some of these Western, we've seen them beat the Clippers a couple times now. That's a potential matchup. We haven't seen the Rockets. I'm excited to see what some of these things look like. I haven't looked at the schedule to see how many of these contending teams they still have on the schedule, but normally by now in a season, you've got evidence of at least a couple things, and this is completely fresh and new stuff. So not only are they winning, it's in every matchup is intriguing because it's completely different. If you played the Lakers, more than a month and a half ago at the very most, I don't care what the results were. They don't matter. We're starting over, and that's a cool place to be in March.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how they match up against the Thunder, not just because the Thunder are the 1 seed, because last year the Lakers really were a bad matchup for the Thunder, but the compositions of both rosters are so different now. Mm-hmm. And in particular, the size advantage the Lakers had last year over OKC has completely flipped.
Yes.
But the flip side is, though, now the Lakers have more guys that they can put on Shea and Jalen Williams and maybe mess up some of the perimeter scoring that really gets the offense going for the Thunder. Like that, Shea is the basis of everything they do offensively. There's a lot, again, like you said, there's a lot we're going to be learning about this team, which is really unique this late in a season.
No question.
But it's also really fun when, again, it feels like things are moving in the right direction for this team.
I mean, they're not hanging on. We're not crossing our fingers going, okay, give it 2 weeks and then we'll see if they can turn it on. we are so far past like making sure they stay in the top 6. Like, go look at the standings. These 2 games against the Clippers put an enormous gap between these 2 teams. Like, the Lakers are, the conversation is, barring injury, knock on wood, is not about top 6 anymore. It's about top 4.
They're currently 6.5 games ahead of the Clippers. The Clippers are the 6th seed.
20 something, 24 games remaining or something like that. It's not there. So like,
it's not impossible, but you need a major skid for that to become a thing.
Right. If guys are healthy, they're not going to lose enough games for the Clippers to make up 6 games. So like, the conversation is now about top 4, hosting in the first round, that kind of thing. And it's just a stunning place to be. And there's a reason why you can make Lakers fans are jumping up and down in excitement. And that is what caused an earthquake on Sunday evening. It wasn't, but here we go. Thank you very much for the 1,200 people joining us live on this broadcast. We certainly appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribing to the show, whether here on YouTube, on the Locked On Lakers channel, or obviously on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all of them. Sign up for the newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com for that. And we'll see everyone tomorrow.